Good morning, everyone. This is Tim Harris, and you've just heard from my lovely wife, Julie Harris, and this is the Harris Real Estate University Superstar Interview. So if you're a frequent attender to these Superstar interviews, you know what this is all about, and if you're listening to this call in replay for the first time, or if you're a first-time visitor, let me just give you a quick description of what you're about to experience. Every Friday here at Harris Real Estate University, Julie and I provide free real estate training for the real estate community. Obviously, it's geared mostly towards Harris Real Estate University students, but we also invite anyone who's in the real estate industry to listen in. So what we do on Fridays is we'll interview a top-producing agent or agents like we are today. Sometimes we'll choose someone who's an author that's maybe or maybe not in the real estate industry already. And what we'll do oftentimes on most Fridays where we don't have an author or we don't have a top-producing realtor scheduled is Julie and I will present information to you, information that's designed to educate, motivate you, and get you into action. So today's Superstar interview, we have two very special guests. So Dan and Tracy, welcome to the call.
Thanks.
Good morning, Tim.
Okay, great. So first of all, thanks for being this week's Harris Real Estate University Superstars. And I'm going to give you guys a little brief introduction, and then I'm going to let Dan and Tracy kind of take over. So Dan and Tracy haven't been coaching students for Harris Real Estate University for very long, and actually they're two of my personal graduate coaching students. I don't even think we've been coaching together for but a couple of months. And in that time, actually, I've learned a lot from both of them. It reminded me a lot of frankly, some of the struggles that Julie and I went through when we were building our real estate practice. But also, they have a lot of very creative, a lot of very ingenious ideas for lead generation. So certainly they have a lot of suggestions on how to work together as a couple, how to build a team, but I want you to all pay very close attention to their lead generation ideas because, again, a lot of them are very creative, unique, and entrepreneurial, which I always admire. So Dan and Tracy, either one of you, where do you guys sell real estate? Give them just some brief information on how they can get hold of you to send you referrals.
Well, good morning, Tim. Thank you for that. Tracy and I, we sell real estate in Virginia, Maryland, and D.C., and you can get in touch with us most directly with an email, and that best email is dan@greetingsvirginia.com, and that's all spelled out, dan@greetingsvirginia.com.
And when you say Greetings Virginia, it's Greeting, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so you've got to
Greetings with an S at the end. I don't know if you got the S. Greetings.
Yeah, Greetings Virginia. Okay, good. Yeah, and what is your phone number in case they don't want to have to email you?
The best phone number, 703-562-1788. 703-562-1788.
So you guys, you focus on 3 geographic areas. There's a lot of agents doing that neck of the woods just because everything's relatively close. And essentially all those communities, they pretty much service Washington, D.C. Is that an overstatement or is that about right?
It is correct. I mean, you know, we're about 8 miles from Maryland and about 8 miles from D.C. So, you know, some agents only get licensed in Maryland and some only in Virginia and some only in D.C. And we choose to serve all 3.
So what is you're doing, I'm sure you're having to do short sales, you're doing some REOs, you're doing some traditional sales. You sold how many houses last year, and just roughly, Dan, what % are distressed properties, say, compared to just non-distressed properties?
We sold 102 properties last year, and most of them were distressed. So to give you and to give you a percentage, I mean, it's about it's definitely less than a third that are traditional. And most of what we sell are short sales.
Okay, perfect. So everyone who's listening to this call, you can enter in questions for Dan and Tracy as we go through today's interview. Just enter them into the question box, and I have certainly a bunch of questions that I prepared, but if you want to have any specific questions answered, especially as we get into the details of the lead generation stuff, enter them into the webinar. So you and your wife work as a team, and you have folks that work with you. So tell us about your team. Tell us about what your and Tracy's, or Tracy, you can obviously, whoever wants to handle this question. Tell us about the team and tell us about what your primary roles are in the team.
Well, Dan's primary role is lead generation, and my primary role is client care. So that's just the cut and dry of it.
Okay, so what does client care mean, Tracy? Help me out with that. What do you typically do? What is your job description?
My job description is to make sure all of our clients are happy at all times. We get to closing on time or in a timely fashion, and I problem solve and I troubleshoot and I delegate to our assistants so we get everything on track. That includes marketing, pre-marketing, and all of that. And Dan does all of the touch points, lead generation, sphere of influence, and he's the rainmaker.
So how do you, you also go on listing appointments personally, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you decide, Tracy, and Dan, this is for both of you guys, how did you originally decide who was doing what? Because like most, I'd say, emerging superstar, top-producing real estate teams across the country, what happens along the way in the evolution is that you have to wear multiple hats. I mean, certainly as a sole practitioner, you have to wear a bunch of different hats, but even as you start to build out your business, as you add more transactions, you have to wear multiple hats. And when you hear Dan and Tracy describe what they do, you're going to hear them talking about doing the in-the-business activities, which would be, the paperwork processing and, the going on listing appointments and lead generation, and the on-the-business activities would be focusing on big-picture, business development issues. So that's normal as a team is emerging and growing that, folks are going to have to do multiple tasks. Those of you with who are sole practitioners or practitioners with a part-time assistant, I know you can certainly relate and understand you're going to be in that business building cycle for quite some time. So, Dan, how did you decide, or how did you and your wife decide who was going to do what? How did that actually evolve?
Well, we really just looked at our strengths and our weaknesses, and we decided that, a lot of that's based on our personality types as well. So we wanted to, put ourselves into a place where our personalities would best serve us and where our strengths would best serve us, and to be able to complement each other's, weaknesses and strengths. And, I have agents, say to me, well, Dan, you only have what you have because you have Tracy. And, my reply to that is, you're absolutely correct. And, and I suggest if you don't have a Tracy, well, that would be my first thing that I would do is I'd go out and find a Tracy, or
what does that mean? What do you mean by that? I mean,
it would mean that I would find somebody to complement my strengths and to complement my weaknesses.
Okay. So Tracy's, how is it specifically that you guys work together? So like what would be, if I were wanting to do business with you guys as a seller, okay? So I heard of Dan and Tracy. I know you guys sell a lot of houses. You guys got a great reputation, a lot of innovative, stuff that's attracting me to you as a seller. Tell me about my experience as soon as I pick up the phone and call you or I send you an email. How does that whole work? Take me with detail. Go ahead.
It's really simple, and it's worked really well for us in that when I first started, I would do one transaction and then I'd be unemployed for a period of time, and that got very frustrating, and everybody knows the roller coaster ride that agents go on. And so when Dan came aboard, he really pushed us to grow, and we told all of our clients, I'm 100% focused on them. And I'm different than other agents because I don't focus on where the next business is going to come from. That's all Dan does. So I can dedicate 100% of my time to you getting your goals met and making sure that they're communicated with every step of the way. So no balls get dropped while I don't have to worry about where the next business is coming from because Dan's taking care of that. He's big picture.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So, Dan, give us your job description. I sort of have an understanding of what Tracy does. She's sort of the face of the business. She's out there going, she's the high-touch person. She's the person that generally I'm going to, come in contact with first when I want to do business with you guys. Is that a safe description?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, Dan, describe what you do.
Well, as Tracy mentioned earlier, her job's to work in the business and my job's to work on the business. And you touched it a little bit as well, Tim. Thank you. And it's really, of what working on the business means, which is, planning future development, planning for, lead generation. I mean, I would say 80% of my time, 90% of my time is revolved around lead generation. It really, truly is. And thanks to a lot of great coaching from you personally, Tim, I'm transitioning to being more proactive lead generation, as opposed to the creative lead generation that we've done in the past.
What do you mean by proactive lead generation versus using the right word, I think, is passive lead generation? What do you mean by, what's the difference?
Well, the proactive lead generation is calling expireds, calling past clients, calling sphere of influence. And that's, as we all develop and grow, we're all open to coaching and to this is a journey. So that's one area of my business that I have not done a 10 out of 10 in regards to, doing it, at a high level. And, we've done a lot of things. Well, thank you. And that's where we're focusing our efforts at right now.
So Dan, what did you do before you joined Tracy in the real estate business?
I waited tables at the Capitol Grill in Washington, D.C.
Okay, and Tracy, what did you do before you sold real estate?
I also worked at the Capitol Grill in Washington, D.C. That's where Dan and I met.
Well, the Capitol Grill, for those of you who aren't familiar with that area, is actually quite a famous place. I mean, if you're going to wait tables, that would be the place to wait tables. That's about right, yeah? Yeah,
it's the top. It's the top of the line there. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the people that come in there are all pretty much the people you see on, C-SPAN every day, so that's kind of an interesting experience. So let's talk a little bit about your team. Describe to the listeners who's in your team, what do they do, besides you two?
Sure. Well, we have myself and Tracy, and Tracy's really our lead listing specialist, so she's, she's the one that's taking the listings and particularly with the short sales, I'm very, very involved with that, and just really basically handing it off to her when they're committed and ready to roll. Then we have Jennifer, who's our executive assistant, and we have Brian, who's our lead, who's our buyers team manager, and we have we also use some virtual assistants as well. So I'm a big fan of virtual assistants. It's something that has definitely served our business well.
So you're saying the short sale, who pre-qualifies the leads? Like who decides when a listing lead comes in, say a short sale listing lead, who pre-qualifies that listing lead? Does it automatically go to Tracy or does whoever just takes the call?
No, it automatically.
Dan always does that.
Yeah, it automatically comes to me.
Okay, so I'm going to point out something to the listeners here, and I think if I say something incorrectly, guys, it's not rude to correct me, okay? So, Dan, you're doing the short sale end of things in terms of the pre-qualifying. Is that, and so Tracy's doing the stuff that's going to require higher touch and maybe more natural sales skills type thing going on. And again, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes. I'm just trying to point out a difference here. And the reason that maybe Dan's focusing on pre-qualifying the short sale stuff, because he is obviously much more cut and dry, much more probably in a lot of ways analytical in his approach, driver in his approach, where Tracy, if you guys didn't feel it yet, is, very nice and friendly and people-oriented, and she's more of a natural extrovert type. So those are how they fit together at personality style-wise, and we'll talk about that in a second for those of you who aren't familiar with personality styles. So Dan, is that right? Are you focusing on the short sale stuff because it's a very, this is what you have to do, Mr. Seller, to sell the house, and these are the directions you have to follow these directions and we'll work with you? Is it because that type of approach?
Yeah, 100% correct, Tim. I mean, when I'm qualifying a short sale prospect, I'm very clear about how the journey will be, and I'm very clear that we, in most cases, we can help them. If they have any shot at all of success, we can certainly help them. And, and I'm very clear about what they need to do through their part of the journey, meaning that, they need to get certain paperwork together before I'll introduce them to Tracy and to Jennifer. There's certain things that they need to do on the intake, and when they do that, then that shows us that they're committed to selling the home. And then I sort of hand it off to Tracy and Jennifer, and they get them onto the market.
So short sale students and future short sale students, listen to what Dan just said. The approach that you take with a short sale seller is literally completely different than you would with a normal retail seller. And a normal retail, well, I mean, what's the difference? You guys tell the listeners, what's the biggest difference in the approach that you take with a potential short sale listing versus, say, a normal retail listing, somebody with equity?
Yeah, a short sale seller, a short sale listing, what we're emphasizing to them is our skill set in regards to our expertise in completing the short sale. So they're not necessarily interested in though our marketing, I mean, we do marketing on a very, very high level, and our short sale sellers, they're not interested in that. They're interested to say, can you get this job done? Which is different than the retail sellers. With the retail sellers, it's all the traditional things that they're concerned about, which is communication. And the short sale sellers are concerned about that as well. But communication, the price, commission, length of listing agreement, etc. It is really two different things that the sellers are interested in.
It's the difference between a retail seller, which is sort of like a beauty contest, right? I mean, who's got the best marketing, who's got the best websites, and who can wine and dine the seller, retail type business, versus someone who's there to solve a problem, and you're essentially taking control of the seller right away. You're not trying to sell the seller on using you, really. You're just trying to sell the seller on the fact that this is a solution to solving their problem. Correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Tim.
Exactly.
Yeah, Tracy, do you do much of the short sale, initial short sale intake business? Do you do much of that personally in terms of the pre-qualifying?
I do, but I'm like the second phase. So with our short sale clients, we have to repeat things. So we almost do a double intake process because a lot of times the short sale clients, they have their heads in the sand. They're not willing to face reality. So after Dan has that conversation, and it comes onto my desk, I have a second intake conversation with them to make sure that they're really, really clear on what we need from them. And I need to get their promise to me that they will give us all their documents on time, or we hold the right to cancel the listing.
Right, exactly. So
that's how important it is.
The process, and there's some reports. Hopefully everyone here is reading the blog every day, realestateinsidernews.com. Now here it is, basically the beginning of May 2011, for those of you who are listening to this call in the future. Hopefully things have gotten better, 5 years from now. But as it is May 2011, we are going into a double dip in the housing market. And right now, guys, like it or not, I don't like it any more than you do, prices are headed downward in terms of values, lower than they were in 2008. Again, it's kind of depressing, but it's a fact. The housing market is double dipping again. The temporary reprieve that we all seem to enjoy there from the home buyer tax credit, it's completely gone. So values are trending downward at the same trajectory as they were before. Read this information on the blog, realestateinsidernews.com. Why do I point that out? Because knowing how to do short sales, a lot of you have been hearing from us since, it's been 5 or 6 years now since we started rolling out short sale training on a nationwide level, and we've been, frankly, doing everything in our power to get all of you to wake up to the fact that it was an emerging opportunity. Well, the irony is, here it is 5 or 6 years later since we, did our first presentation on short sales, it's just getting started. I mean, that's the reality of it, is short sales are just getting started nationwide. And now, again, on the blog, realestateinsidernews.com, we've been talking about direct assignment short sales, which are starting to come. We're talking about, I don't know, Dan and Tracy, have you guys come across any of these direct assignment short sales yet where the owner is getting offered tens of thousands of dollars cash for keys for doing the short sale? Have you guys had any of those yet?
We have, Tim, and the interesting thing with those is I've probably done maybe, a half a dozen or so of those, and oftentimes the sellers are not interested when I'm calling them to tell them that the bank's offering them $17,000 to sell the home. And that's what I've been hearing.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to reinforce what you're saying, and that's what I've been hearing from all of our students.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, listen, true story, a little bit off script here, but I had a free coaching call with one of our graduate students yesterday, and this is a guy that sells like 250 houses a year, and he's a RE/MAX agent, and he just got a bunch of these, I think it was Chase pre-approved short sales, and he was like part of some pilot program and yada, yada, yada. Well, this is guys in California, and most of them were for $20,000, and a couple of them were for $30,000, okay? $30,000, Mr. Seller. Let me short sell your house. The bank wants to avoid the foreclosure, and not one of them listed.
Yeah.
Not one of them. And he's a good salesperson, right? You don't sell that many houses if you don't know how to sell houses. So the more, well, Dan, why are you finding that they're refuting the cash for keys offers?
I think it's just because they're denying reality. I mean, and we've had the exact same experience as that agent in California, and it just, and oftentimes when clients are approaching us, sometimes they're a little reluctant to face that reality of the fact that that they are going to have to move out of their home, and the choices that they haven't been able to pay their mortgage, unfortunately, for several months, and the next phase is going to be foreclosure, unfortunately, and sometimes they just sort of get their head stuck in the sand, and they don't really want to face reality, and and that happens from time to time.
That's right. Yeah. So again, this is just the nature of it, guys. This is the nature of selling short sales. This is the nature of selling real estate in the United States. This is the nature of people's mindsets. How does that affect you when you're dealing with so much distressed property? When you're dealing with Tracy, this is a good question for you, I think, because Dan, I have a feeling it doesn't affect him much. Did I say that? I say that with admiration, to be honest with you. But Tracy, you're a people person, right? I mean, you're an intuitive person. I think I know you well enough to know that. So when you're dealing with people that are dealing with their own personal hardships every day, how do you emotionally kind of weigh all that out internally?
Not always easy. I empathize, but from a distance, and I only give them a short period of time to kind of cleanse their spirit, so to speak, and then I let them know the opportunity and how great they're going to feel once this burden of the home is no longer their problem. They can move on and start rebuilding their life.
Well, tell me what you tell them. Tracy, tell the listeners exactly what you say. I mean, so Tracy, I'm a seller, and listen, I'm kind of depressed, and I haven't made my payment for 2 years, and I've got a job, but it doesn't pay me enough to be able to afford my payment. I got turned down on a loan mod, the typical scenario. So what are you going to tell me to make me feel better?
Well, it's a difficult situation, and you're not alone. A lot of other people are in your same exact situation, and we've helped a lot of those people move on, rebuild their lives. We have short sale clients that, believe it or not, have purchased new properties a year after their short sale closed. I thought it was only 2 years, but we have a client in Ohio that just bought in Ohio, and we short sold their Virginia home a year ago. So it is possible to move on. There is life after short sale. That's what I told you.
What I'm hearing you say, and you do this intuitively, Tracy, it's the reason you're such a great salesperson, is you're showing emotion without being emotional. And everyone should write that down and remember that. You don't do anybody any good if you basically become part of their emotional downward spiral, right? So you can show emotion, show empathy without being emotional. In other words, becoming like they are. So say things like Tracy just did. Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, listen, I hate that this is happening to you. I really do. This is an awful situation. But let me tell you, you're not alone. This is what you can do next. This is how you can turn things around. And then what Tracy did naturally is then she started painting a picture of how good the future will be and what will happen once you make this move and once you get, as you heard her say, get this problem and this burden off your shoulders. This is what your future could be like. So you have to, everyone listening, follow that same pattern. The reality of it is these people have to sell their homes. The reality is if we ever expect to have any sort of normalcy back in our real estate markets, we got to clear this distressed inventory. I mean, what if you think about it, all these houses out there that are underwater, all these houses where the banks haven't put them for sale, haven't foreclosed, all they are, guys, they're zombies. They're zombies from the bubble. They're just walking, zombies. And they're still being allowed to exist and live. And until we clear that inventory, the market's going to stink. The market's going to be full of distressed properties. And now that property values are dropping again, we're going to see more and more of the country go underwater. So get real good at these scripts. Get real good at being able to have a strong mindset about helping people, having that be your primary focus. So back to our questions, guys. You've sold over 100 homes last year. Dan and Tracy, how long have you worked together to accomplish that goal? How many years have you guys worked together professionally, real estate-wise?
You can take that, Dan.
Thanks. About 3.5 years.
Okay, so how long, it took you 3.5 years from Dan starting for you guys to get to 100 homes per year. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Absolutely.
Tracy, how many were you selling when before Dan joined you?
I was licensed in '04, and so as I said before, it was really just a painful roller coaster. I would sell a property, and then there would be nothing for a while. And then
typical realtor, basically.
Coaster. Yeah, it was
exactly.
very difficult.
So now that you're selling 100 homes per year, and the word is going to be consistently, because you guys are tracking to sell at least the number that you sold last year, correct?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
All right. So, Dan, what are you projecting for this year's sales, by the way?
Well, it's going to break 100. We had a sort of a slow January and February, but I think that we can get over 120. And we'll see how the third and fourth quarter go as well. But I'm pretty comfortable saying that.
So, Tracy, this question is mostly for you. As you've progressed in this business, as you guys have gone from, the typical patterns, Tracy, you mostly, the typical pattern of realtors where you do business, you're busy processing your files and working with buyers and sellers. Those close, then you're broke, and then you recreate all of it again. Now that you've kind of worked through that typical up and down cycle in real estate and with your income, and you guys are building towards selling over 100 homes per year consistently, Tracy, what have you specifically had to stop doing in order to allow that to happen?
Oh, that's easy. I've had to stop trying to do it all myself.
Okay. Was that hard?
Oh, yeah. It's still hard today. It's still hard for me to do today because I'm a people pleaser. I see something come in that needs to be done urgently, and I think intuitively I'll just do it myself. It's faster. When in fact what I need to do and what I'm starting to do better is I leverage that out to somebody else, to my assistant or to a VA, virtual assistant, and the job gets done better.
Okay, so how do you stop yourself? Like when you're having that sort of angstful feeling that I'm just going to do it myself, because I'm sure everybody on this call can relate to that. How do you stop yourself from actually doing it yourself and start thinking like a business owner? How do you take yourself out of, typical salesperson mode and put yourself into business owner mode? How do you do that?
Sure. Well, it's something that you said on one of our coaching calls, Tim, and that was we've got to be introspective. And that is so helpful because if you just become a reaction machine, you're just going to kill yourself at the end of the day. You have to be introspective and think, what can I do right now to create balance, to only do dollar-producing items, and the rest I need to assign to somebody else and hold them accountable to get it done.
How do you what's the thought process that goes through your mind, Tracy, as far as the introspection? How are you keeping yourself in check and making it so that you're able to have more, as you said, balance in your life?
I think the best way to find balance is if you're not loving doing it at that moment, find somebody else needs to do it. Everything that I do, I love my job. I'm very passionate about what I do and helping others. And if I'm not loving doing that at that moment, I either need to take a 10-minute break, which nobody ever does anyway, get real, right? Or I need to leverage that out to somebody else and say, hey, you need to do this for me, and then I'll just review it really quickly.
So that's your test right there, right? That's your test. So do I love doing this? Is this something I'm looking forward to doing? Is this something that I have passion for? And if it's not, then basically you figure out a way to delegate it. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. That works for me.
And so, Tracy, when you're focusing just on the things that you have passion for, that you look forward to, how do the results improve? What happens in your, not just your personal life, or not just your business, but your personal life? How do things change for you if you're just focusing on the activities that you have passion for?
Everything kind of runs more smoothly, just effortlessly. There's like a grace in the day, and even though that might have been a 10-hour day, it shows up differently than an 8-hour day if I was doing all the things I hated doing, like the BPOs.
Okay,
and then I'm really present with my daughter and my husband, and it's happy and it feels balanced.
So,
really
Tracy, in your business, what is it that you have passion for? What do you love doing?
I love troubleshooting and client care and problem solving. Any issues, any negotiating item, I'm very, very good at that. I'm very good at telling somebody no and making them feel good about it. So
Poor Dan.
And I keep Dan on his toes.
I feel good about myself.
Yeah, keep on saying that to yourself, Dan. That's a good affirmation. So, Dan, what do you have passion for? What is it you look forward to doing?
I just love building the business. You know, I love treating it like a business, and you know, it's interesting because I remember when Tracy and I when I first joined Tracy a few years ago, and I remember going out to lunch with another real estate agent, and the agent, you know, said, "Well, what are you guys up to?" I said, "Well, we're Dan and Tracy Consultants," and she sort of laughed, and she said, "Well, where are the consultants?" And I just said, "Well, they're not here yet," you know, so. You know, I envision where we are today, you know, from day one, and we're really, honestly, Tim, we're only, you know, partway through the journey right now, and I've got really two clear goals in business, and that's to have fun and make a profit. You know, now I've got other goals in my life that are very important as well, but I'm very, very clear on what my business goals are.
So an interesting thing, and thanks for that, Dan, an interesting thing, I hope all the listeners are paying attention to the question I'm about to ask, or the observation I'd say I'm about to make. So the interesting thing about Dan and Tracy, and frankly, I would say a majority of the top producers at Harris Real Estate University, is they weren't top producers 5 or 7 years ago. That's just the truth. Now, I'm not saying that we have thousands of students, and obviously we have guys that have been coaching with us Julie and I, for a long, long time. But for the most part, most of the agents that are Harris Real Estate University top producers, during the bubble, they are not top producers, and they are now. And the other thing is that I really like about a lot of the agents that we're attracting is they're not, I mean, when you listen to Dan and Tracy, there's not a lot of ego there. They are business-minded. Dan, how important, when you say profit, when you say net profit, when you say, you know, we've talked about saving money before, we talked about all those types of things before. Tell the listeners how important a net profit, saving money, being frugal, dare I say, is to you and your business.
It's a key component. I mean, I understand that we are business owners, and the way to measure a healthy business is through profit. There's other, you know, factors that are important as well, but that's really, honestly, if you're not having a profit in business, then, you know, you're going to be out of business. You know, so that's, you know, that's the bottom line. And you know, and so when we first started, you were mentioning about 5 or 7 years ago about us not being top producers. 5 or 7 years ago, I was waiting tables, you know. So, and I remember going out on a boat with these multimillionaires, and everybody there was making, I don't know, $20,000 that day, and nobody was working, you know, because they had put their work in up front, and they were receiving the benefit of that day. And even though I made you mentioned the Capitol Grill, I had a great job. I loved that job, and we made a nice income. But it was only there when I showed up to work, you know. So today I really respect money, and I respect saving the money so that we can, you know, plan for the next phase of our life, so that we don't have to, you know, consistently be working, you know, very, very hard.
Well, so here's the shift in the mindset. One of the things that we teach at Harris Real Estate University is that when you're running a real estate practice, so I'm going to ask this question, and collectively everyone can, you know, virtually, and even maybe Dan and Tracy can participate in this as well. When you're running a real estate practice, the traditional way of answering this question is you'd say home sales. So here's the question. What is the product that you produce as a realtor? Home sales, right? I mean, that's what everyone thinks. My job is to sell homes. My product for my business is a sold, you know, closed transaction and a commission check. But the reality of it is if that's where your focus is going to be, indeed you might start selling a lot of homes. Indeed you might become a top producer, and I might be interviewing you here one Friday morning or afternoon in the future. But for you to be successful, for you to be whatever your definition of successful is, by the way, for you to actually build wealth, your product has to be profit. So at Harris Real Estate University, when I ask you what your product is, When you think about, like, you know, what's Apple's product? They make computers and iPhones and whatevers. What's, Ford's product? They make cars. What's Dunkin' Donuts product? They make donuts and they make coffee, okay? That's how they'll answer the question. But the thing is in real estate, guys, your product has to be profit. Everyone, if you struggle with that internally, think about it, internalize it, meditate on it. But if you're not making a profit, something that results in building a savings account, something that results in you being able to create passive investments for yourself, you're not running a successful business. Here's the little secret that no one ever tells you when you're in the real estate business, and I'm going to say it, and I know I catch bullets for it, but I don't care, because everybody needs to know this. And Dan and Tracy already know this, and I'm sort of just preaching to the choir here, I know. For you to sell a lot of homes in real estate, eventually you have to add staff. You have to make it so that you can multiply yourself through other people's efforts. That's just natural, normal type business behavior. Where the fallacy is that building these teams creates a sellable asset. That's not true, okay? There it is. I'm going to say it. And you guys, anyone listening now or into the future, call me out about it. Real estate practices, nobody buys and sells them, not in terms of real multiples. A real multiple would be taking your Ibotta and you're taking your gross profit in basic sense and multiply it times 3 or 4 times, and that would be what you'd sell the business for, or something along those lines. Real estate practices don't sell. Nobody wants to buy them. Nobody really sells them successfully. So the only true product that your business produces is a profit. You become wealthy. You create passive investments, not from the income that you make from your real estate business, as in spending it on your lifestyle, but from the income that you invest from your real estate business. So Dan and Tracy, I know you guys get this. How important, you own part of a Keller Williams office, right?
We do, yes.
So how often do you see realtors understanding that that's the concept, that's the ideal goal? Because you guys are very frugal. You're focused on building your net worth. That's something that kind of flies in the face of the traditional real estate culture, isn't it?
That the ultimate goal is profit?
The ultimate goal is basically, profit, and not necessarily having the biggest, flashiest team with all the buyer agents, because that doesn't lead to necessarily to net profit.
We've seen the huge teams, and you can make just as much money as a solo individual agent closing 2 deals a month as a larger team closing multiple deals a month. In fact, you can make more money as a single solo agent if you if you respect your money properly, and that larger team can certainly. I mean, I've seen larger teams lose money, and that's the reality of it. So it's not necessarily just because I'm the biggest that you're earning the most profit. That's not true whatsoever.
Well, when we have realtors, we'll email us and call us, and we ask them what we can help them with, and they say they want to. And Dan, help me out here, because I know you're the operating principal of this Keller Williams office, along with a primary owner, correct? You guys are.
Yes, and the operating principal would be considered the primary owner.
Okay, so when you have agents come to you and they say they want to focus on building their team, as we hear from time to time, what do you do with those types of agents? When they say that, and let's say they're not doing a lot of units?
Well, the first thing when an agent comes into us is we want to really get clear on 2 things. And first thing is, where are you? Have an honest assessment of where are you truly today. The second thing is where do you want to go? And let's have an honest, true assessment of what that may be. And then when we can get those 2 goalposts, then we can understand, we can map out the journey in between. And, one of the things that I make sure that, and this doesn't necessarily answer the profit question, but it definitely drives into the profit is understand that the agents understand that we're not in the real estate sales business. We're in the lead generation business, specializing in real estate sales. I mean, that's what we do. Now if you can focus on that, saying we're in a lead generation business, because that's the first thing that generates everything else that follows, and then be respectful of the income and treat it well, and of the income as well as the expenses, and then at the end of the day you hopefully you have a good profit.
So let's talk about lead generation. Let's just jump ahead. What are your primary drivers for lead generation? Give us as much detail as you feel comfortable.
Sure.
We call them spokes. So let's use all the right terminology, right? So a spoke is a source of business. A spoke is a source of, new business coming into you. What are your spokes?
One of our newest spokes that is has been treating us very well is our website, greetingsvirginia.com. And that website has been consistently, I've been developing that over the past year and a half on a, custom Super IDX, and it's been consistently generating. It's a very user-friendly search, so consumers and customers just love it, and we get introduced to them through that. So that would be the one spoke. The other spoke that we do is really, honestly, I just got a call, during my prospecting time. It's funny, Tim, because I got a call, or it was an email during my prospecting time earlier today, and I looked at it, I said, should I follow up on that? Because I was trying to decide if it was prospecting or not, and I decided it was because it was an agent that had, referred me a short sale prospect in Maryland, and that agent's not licensed in Maryland. So, I called him right away and called the prospect, and I'll be calling her back here in about 40 minutes when we're finished with this phone call. So other agents, that's definitely a spoke that we have. And then something that we do that I'm not sure if many others do, but we prospect the media. I intentfully prospect to the media and let them know, just like anybody else. When you're offering a service to somebody, you want to let them know, say, listen, I'm going to be responsive to you. I'm going to be, give you intelligent answers, and be available for you. And when we get a media request, we respond back to that media request with a full, report on whatever they're asking us about within a couple hours.
Our listeners are not going to let you get away with just saying that. You're going to have to give more detail. First of all, you're not giving yourself enough credit. When you go to their website, guys, greetings, plural, Virginia.com, you're going to see they haven't just been in the local howdy-dowdy newspapers. They've been on national news. They've been on national evening news. Rattle off some of the places that you guys have been exposed. It's pretty amazing, really. It's very impressive.
Well, we've been on the NBC Nightly News and on CNBC, as well as the Today Show, and local news. We have a local radio station, which many of the listeners would not be familiar with, but WTOP News, and that's a local radio station that often has Tracy and I on as local experts in real estate, as well as the Washington Post and Washington Examiner and a few others as well.
So how do you specifically go about getting that level of recognition, and essentially how do you make it so they contact you? Tell us what you do.
Sure. It's just like anything else. It's during my prospecting time, I will call editors, I will call producers, and you can find their names, their numbers. Google is a friendly tool. I just call them and just introduce myself to them and create relationship. And the interesting thing about the media is, when they need a story done, they need it done. They need it done yesterday. I had a reporter call me once. It was like 4 p.m. They said, Dan, something came out in the New York Times that morning, and they wanted to do a story that night. And they say, I need some comments on this. You have all the time in the world. My deadline's 5 p.m. It was an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
But that's the thing. They have to rely on you. They have to know they can trust you. They have to know that you're going to basically respond immediately and that you're a reliable source. But you're saying, so if someone wanted to start getting their name in the media, because that is a wonderful way to build credibility for yourself in the marketplace and to differentiate yourself. And you guys go to their website, and Dan, I did see how you moved those logos to the top, so good job on that.
Thank you.
So when you go to their website and you talk with Dan and Tracy and you see all these different places they've been featured, I don't know about all the listeners, but nothing's going to give somebody credibility more than saying they were interviewed by Dan Rather or what have you. So someone wants to get started doing this, give me a step-by-step. I heard you say find out, identify who the local media outlets are. I heard you say that. I heard you say go to Google and do some search outs. Who do I contact? Who do I, in the lead editor?
It would be typically it's going to be the producer or the editor, depending on if you're talking about print media or radio or television.
Okay, so I'm contacting the producer. Okay, then what do I pitch them with? Do I have a story all ready to go? What do I do?
Sometimes you can do that, particularly if you already have a relationship developed, and that's a good thing. We just did a very good story that has not been published yet that we pitched, which was we had the Washington Examiner. They came out, they interviewed some of our past short sale clients, and that had closed 3 years ago, 2 years ago, even that day, and talking about their journey, their experience, etc. And that was a story that I pitched, and I pitched that to half a dozen different people, and a reporter was interested in doing it. The other thing is once you start developing those relationships, then one relationship leads to the next. And so now today, I've got the direct relationships with the reporters. But I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the best way to go directly to them. I would say go to the editors or the producers first.
So let's say, for example, my local ABC news outlet, right? I go to Google. I find out that who am I searching out? There's not an editor of a TV station, so who am I actually searching for?
That's going to be a producer. You can just call me. Yeah, you can just call it just like anything else. It's like prospecting for an REO, for an asset manager. It's like, it's not necessarily easy to get to the right person, but it's just persistence and just, I put that in right there with my prospecting time because it's just a unique way that we decided to do business. And, and I know that it's not as proactive as some of the other things that I do, but it has returned results. And so.
Well, talk about that. So this is something that you actually can have trackable business to beyond the obvious brand building and reputation stuff, which we don't talk about a lot because it's not tangible. You can't track it. What trackable, closable business can you attribute to you guys really becoming quite the media celebrities in your market? How do you go about tracking the sources of the business? Tell us about that.
Two ways. One is when is very direct when somebody picks up the phone and they call us because they say that they heard us on WTOP News. That's very easy to track. The second thing, and I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, Tim, is credibility. So for example, when we're doing the short sale intake, when I have my initial phone call with them and I email them the paperwork that they need to fill out, the hardship, sample hardship letter, the financial worksheet, etc. In that email, we have some of the PR, when they see that we've been featured on NBC Nightly News, with Brian Williams, and about our success with doing short sales. At that point, the credibility factor, very few other agents are going to have the same credibility as what we have at that point right there. So,
are you guys using the co-author book? Are you using the Should I Short Sale My Home book yet?
We do. I just received them in the mail the other day, and Tracy and I filmed a video yesterday that's being edited, and that's going to be promoted pretty soon. Within
all right. So Dan, you're the creative media type. How are you going? So everyone, what we're talking about now, and you can see on the webinar, there's a little button for it. It says "Be My Co-Author." Check that out. If it's of interest to you, great. If it's not, no worries. But basically, Julie and I wrote a book. And you can essentially become a co-author. You get all the publishing rights, all the reprinting rights. You can give the book away. You can sell it on Amazon, but it's a completely done book for you. Files, book cover design, it's all there. Just click that button. So, Dan, how are you planning on marketing that book? Because other agents have done that, and by saying that you're a co-author of a book on a specific topic that's on everyone's minds, I know that's been like, capturing lightning for some of our other top producers. So how are you planning on leveraging that?
Well, again, it's a credibility thing as well. And, so we're going to market it in one of the things that we didn't talk about in one of our spokes, we got a little bit sidetracked there, but I do a networking group, BNI. And so right. I'm doing a keynote speech, I think next week. And, that's something that we'll definitely have involved in our keynote speech because we have several copies that we have printed. So that's on a more intimate sphere of influence level. On a larger level, we're going to be promoting them on a radio campaign for radio advertisement, and we're going to be using that essentially for a product to encourage people to land to a specific landing page to find out, how can they short sale their home? Is this an option for them? Is it viable? What are the consequences, et cetera? And so we'll be promoting that on a rather large scale on the radio advertisements, and then additionally, of course, we're going to be advertising it across the internet as well.
So listeners, go ahead and put in your questions into the webinar. So Dan, let's shift gears. You did a big sort of multi-state short sale marketing palooza, call it what you will, with some other agents, and I've never heard of anyone doing that before. It was wildly successful for you. That's really the best description of it. Tell them about it. Tell them what you did. Tell them how they can do the same thing.
We did a co-op marketing campaign. We're 13 agents, and we each invested, a bit of money into doing this campaign. And and because we did it with 13 agents, we were able to really get a huge marketing budget. And with that marketing budget, we were able to purchase radio spots, television spots, etc. And the campaign was revolved around short sales, but it was really revolved around all solutions for a homeowner. And we had staff available that would answer their phones in real time and set up appointments, etc. And then once the staff did the intake and the qualification for that, then the prospect would be introduced to an agent. So I was a little bit removed from the intake and conversion of that, which was actually good because by the time they got to me in that level, they were already very well qualified, and so it made my job easier. But really, What's
yeah,
that?
Exactly. So Tracy says her job easier. What were the So you did radio, TV. What was the radio? What was the spot? What was the marketing effort? Give us more specific details, because again, we have folks that are out there listening now, in replay in the future, and they're saying, okay, I want to have their same level of success. I want more specific. So tell us specifically what the ads were.
The ads were geared and marketed to if you purchase or refinance from 2005 to 2007, and you have questions about your home, you do have options. So give us a call. And so that was the general message of what we were targeting. We were really specifically targeting anybody that purchased from 2005 to 2007. And we found that the return on that was across the entire geography, because we have a large population in the D.C. metro area, and so now we're toying around with doing some direct mailing campaigns, and those will be mailed to condo conversions that were converted in that same time period, 2005 2006 time period. And mailing directly to them as well. And basically, it's just saying, hey, if you want to know what your options are, to avoid foreclosure, give us a call, or we actually direct them to a squeeze page, to a landing page on the internet.
We probably get the same email 100 times a week, where someone will ask, well, where do I buy the 30, 60, 90-day late leads? And I'll just answer that question myself. You really don't need to anymore. Listen to what Dan and Tracy are saying. The reality of it is, guys, and this is the big number, 40% of all Americans with a mortgage, so all homeowners with a mortgage are now upside down, and it appears that number is actually getting worse. So you don't need to worry about hand selecting and plucking out the guys that are 30, 60, 90 days late. Just focus on entire geographic areas, zip codes, communities, neighborhoods, or as Dan said, condo conversions. They're all upside down. You don't need to worry about who's missed a payment. They're all going to miss payments. Statistically, we know they're all going to eventually lose the house to foreclosure. Very, very few people with negative equity are going to keep their homes. Eventually, history has proven over the last almost 7 years, guys, depending on where in the country when the correction started, history has proven that underwater owners walk away, okay, or let it go as short sale or foreclosure. Focus on entire communities, neighborhoods, opportunities, opposed to hand-selecting people that have already missed payments. So, Dan, the message seemed quite basic, right? So if you bought your house since this year and, you're wondering what the heck to do, call us. We're going to tell you what your different options are. It wasn't more geared towards, underwater, need homes, you need help. Wasn't more specific. Wasn't more targeted.
No, actually, Tim, I've done more targeted campaigns. This particular campaign that we just did, because it was a co-op campaign, it wasn't exactly the way that I may recommend it. I'd be more specific. Are you upside down on your mortgage? Do you need to avoid foreclosure? Right. If so, give us a call. That's my direct message. This message got a little bit diluted, because
you had to appeal to so many different agents and so many different markets, because you had essentially. So when he says co-op, guys, you can do the same exact thing. He just basically went to some agents that he knew that were his friends in the nearby states, and he said, let's get together and let's just do a big media buy. So lead generation-wise, amongst all 13 agents, do you have any clue how many? I know how many you guys generated, but how many leads were actually generated from this marketing effort?
I don't know how many leads were generated, but I know 30 listings were taken in a 6-week period.
And the whole campaign was basically 6 weeks? Is that how long this whole campaign lasted?
It was 7 weeks. Excuse me, it was a 7-week period.
All right, 7 weeks. Was that 30 listings taken by you or 30 listings taken by everybody?
That was during that 7-week period.
By all 13 different realtors?
Yeah, that's correct. And of those, we took 9 of those. Mostly because we invest a little bit more, and then we also we're willing to take listings that are a little bit farther out than some of the other agents were willing to do.
So it was worth it for you, obviously. In your marketplace, even after the correction, your average commission is still what, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, correct?
Yeah, it is. It was absolutely worth it for us.
Yeah, and you're going to do it again?
I'm going to do it again, except I'm going to fund it myself, and we're just going to do the media campaign ourselves.
So Tracy and Dan, I have a question for you guys. We didn't obviously cover all the topics, and hopefully everyone got an idea, got a real sense of really the fact that they too can follow in your footsteps. And really 3.5 years you guys have gone from, well, you weren't even working together 3.5 years ago, and now you're selling over 100 homes per year. And the really cool part is, and hopefully everyone's kind of putting 2 and 2 together here, they did it on distressed property. They've become top producers. This is the new breed of agents that we've been talking about at HREU for years now, and there's going to be more and more agents like this. They have embraced the fact that this is what the market has to offer. They didn't fight it. They said this is how we can help people and be successful now. They built systems in their business around this market, opposed to saying, well, I'm going to focus on what I've always focused on, and whatever distressed property ends up showing in my inventory, well, I'll just deal with that. That has been the short sales, the distressed property, that's their focus. In virtually every market across the country, and they're in, by the way, one of the best markets in terms of percents of people that still have equity in the nation. Their little geographic area, that's actually one of the best places to own a home in the country right now, ironically, and they still have that much opportunity. But if you're in any of the sand states or any of the the states we talk about all the time on Real Estate Insider News, if you're in Vegas, 75% of owners are upside down right now. I mean, Dan and Tracy, when I say that 75% number, if you were in that market, can you imagine? I mean, everywhere you'd look, there'd be opportunity. How does that make you guys feel, thinking about that?
I'm going to come join you in Vegas, Tim.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I have a question, and I think this probably would be a better question for Tracy. Tracy, do you ever feel overwhelmed?
Oh, sure. Dan has a much higher threshold for overwhelmed than I do. It takes him a lot more to get overwhelmed. He rarely gets there, but I get overwhelmed a lot more.
When you feel overwhelmed, Tracy, and again, either one of you, but when you feel overwhelmed, what do? How do you get yourself back in check?
I usually take a step back. I pick up the phone. I call Dan. I'm like, hey, I need some help. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. Walk me through it, because at the moment I feel a little bit like a deer in headlights. And if I can get an outsider like Dan, or Jennifer's great at this too, our executive assistant, just to help me focus on 1 or 2 things and get those 2 things done, all of a sudden the world is a lot more calmer.
So that's your key. When you're feeling overwhelmed, it's because you're trying to focus on too many different tasks, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Dan, do you ever feel the same way? Do you ever feel overwhelmed?
Not a lot. I've got a schedule. I stick to my schedule. I know what my important items are each day. I do those important items without fail, which is lead generation and prospecting. And I feel good about things. As long as I get that done every single day, then I feel good, and everything else, it just gets taken care of.
Well, tell us about your schedule. Tell us about, that was one of my questions, and that's obviously something that we try to get everyone to at least, recognize as being one of the key components in being successful long term in any business, by the way. Tell us about your schedule.
Well, we have a schedule. I mean, our schedule's recently adjusted because we've had the opportunity to adopt our daughter Maggie about 8 months ago, and
I didn't know you guys adopted her.
Yes, we did. Yeah. So
that's cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, very good.
So we have a newborn baby, and so our schedule has adjusted. I mean, it used to be I'd start earlier, but now You start my work day at 9 a.m. and we started in the office. We have the other agents come in, the buyer's agents. We have them come in, and we're all on the phones prospecting. I'm prospecting for listings, and they're prospecting for buyers. And that's the first thing that we do, first thing in the morning. And that to me, it's like if you get that done, then that's you've worked a full day. And then, everything else, because I do have, about half of my time spent with the brokerage and half my time spent with the sales team. So everything else I just schedule after that. So that's the one thing that's non-negotiable for me.
So, Tracy, do you have a schedule?
Definitely. I've always been the morning person. So since Maggie, we've kind of decided that I'll be the 6 to noon in the office, and then and then I'll take the baby home. So I get up about 6. I'm usually in the office by 6:50 or 7:20. I catch up on some emails, and then I start prospecting by 8:15, and I stop at 9:30 every day.
Perfect. And again, what you heard them say basically is they know what they're supposed to do every single day. You heard them both saying they focus on getting the most important things done every single day in the morning, right? And then it's sort of, I hate using the word balance, but really what that allows you to do is every single day you've done what you were supposed to do. You've gotten the most important things done. And you don't have to carry that sort of insecure weight around on your shoulders of wondering, oh my gosh, did I do the most important things? And Dan, you're a list maker too, aren't you?
Oh, yes, yeah. Yeah,
okay, so keeping things organized through lists is another way. I mean, so tell us about Tracy, do you use lists? Are you a list person?
I do use them, not as effectively as Dan does. I give myself a lot of alerts on my cell phone, so I have alerts built in, multiple alerts for each task.
Alerts for your alerts? Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
All right, good. Dan, so tell us, you have a new agent listening. They're wanting to stay organized. They're wanting to basically kind of follow you in your footsteps. When I say list making, what am I talking about, and how do you use that?
Well, I really, I've got my prospecting folder that I carry with me everywhere. And inside that prospecting folder, sort of hung loose, is 2 pieces of paper. One is all the money dollar items that I've done that week, meaning how many conversations have I had, have I talked to somebody for a listing, et cetera. And then additionally in that, the second piece of paper is really my high priority items of what to get done. And I just highlight through it when it's complete, and when the paper gets too messy, I take whatever's left over, I put on a new clean sheet of paper, and then the money dollar producing items, once a week I take it out of that folder, I put it into a different folder that I just sort of keep on file, and I start to list over.
So basically, guys, have a big master list of all the things that you think are important. Every single week, choose 3 to 5 things. Or depending on, how quickly you get things done or the things that you're selecting, maybe you choose more, maybe you choose less. But don't overwhelm yourself with a bunch of stuff that you think you have to get done. Choose the things, like Dan said, that are going to get you paid the fastest, the dollar productive activities, and have those be the things that you're going to knock out every single week. A great week is when you've followed your schedule in the morning, and maybe in addition to that, you've done what you perceive to be the 2 to 3 other things from your list that weren't necessarily the scheduling type items. So maybe Dan is wanting to work on his website, or maybe he's wanting to work on a direct mail campaign, or maybe he's wanting to spend more time with whatever. Those are the types of to-dos that you would do after you've done your lead generation and after you've negotiated contracts and those types of things. All right, so we have some questions, and I'm going to get to the questions now. A lot of comments, too. People love what you guys had to say. I appreciate it. So Mark asks from Stockton, California, what is the squeeze page address? And it is your main squeeze page or your landing page. I love the fact that Mark's using correct internet marketing terms. Would be greetings with a plural, Virginia.com, correct? That's the main landing page, Dan?
Yeah, that's the main landing page.
Okay, this is Victor from Santa Clara, just sort of a general real estate question. I would like to know how they get leads. We answered that, and how you convert the leads to clients. I think we talked about that too. Basically, all new leads, the specific types of leads. If they're short sales, they go to you, Dan, and the general leads, do they go directly to Tracy, or do they pass through somebody else's hands first?
No, any listing lead always comes to me, and any buyer lead always goes to our buyer's team manager, and that passes through an intake and conversion person first.
Okay, here's a good comment. Why would the bank want to pay someone $17,000 to do short sale? What is the bank's benefit, especially if they're not delinquent? Dan, you want to answer that one? It's a great question.
Well, if the bank was to foreclose on that property, it's going to show up as a liability on their balance sheet, and that liability is going to need to be offset by cash on the asset side. So it's definitely, the bank does not want to have a non-performing asset on their books. If they are currently paying their mortgage, the reason why they may do it is because it may be bundled up into an investment pool where a bank just recently purchased, 100 notes or whatever the case may be, and that may be one that they don't necessarily want, so they just want to sell the property.
Or more practically speaking, they lose less money. So Dan was talking from, and he said everything correct, he was talking from the accounting side of things. Banks have to make their balance sheets appear a certain way, and a foreclosure or something that actually is lost to a foreclosure sale, they report that in a more negative way than they would. It's basically like if an owner does a short sale versus a foreclosure, right? So both are bad, but one is not as bad as the other, and one allows you to buy a house again. Quicker, 2 years typically or less. That would be a short sale, whereas the foreclosure takes you out of action for 5 to 7 years. So banks have the same issue, and so the short sale for them results in, and then their credit with big quotes around it not being as bad. Their ability to borrow is not as hurt, and in addition to that, they lose less money. All right, so here's an interesting comment too from Rochelle in Lodi, California. One of our agents in our company just closed a short sale with Chase. The seller got $20,000 for doing this short sale. Is there a name for this program? No one knows anything about it. Rochelle, read the blog. I talk about it all the time. Everyone knows about it. Chase is doing it, and here's what you guys need to know is that the banks are proactively, I see several other questions about this, are proactively literally mailing to owners that have missed payments, but also owners that they suspect will miss payments. Okay, that's what everyone needs to get. The banks are proactively contacting owners in your marketplace that are upside down and telling them that they have the option of doing the short sale. Okay, Dan, how's your interaction been with these underwater owners where the banks are offering money? Has the bank reached out first, or how's that worked?
We've really done two. We've just recently done some of the Chase, and in that case, they have reached out first. And we had another bank that we were dealing with about a year and a half ago, and honestly I don't remember how that scenario was, but either case, the owners were not interested. It was a struggle contacting with the owners.
So here's the bottom line. The banks obviously, and we've told you guys this was going to happen 3 years ago. I hate saying that because I sound like a moron being braggadocious, but it is true. We told you 3 years ago that the banks were going to start being proactive about contacting owners that were upside down and trying to get them to do short sales versus doing strategic walkaways, right? So that should be of no surprise to any long-term Harris Real Estate University students. What is kind of a surprise, being honest, is that these owners still, when offered tens of thousands of dollars, are still saying, nah, I'll stay put. And that is what I'm hearing across the country. So in other words, these cash offers are going to need to increase, or the banks are going to have to start putting more pressure, start increasing their threat to foreclose. But right now, owners are sitting in houses for months, in some cases years, without their notice of default being filed or without the banks taking any action. So a weird time to be selling real estate, to be sure. How do you guys overcome that when you run across somebody that's basically living payment-free and they're like, that's nice, but I'm going to stay here? What do you do with leads like that?
It depends. Tim. It depends on the scenario. I mean, what we've learned with the short sales is that the only time that we're struggling to be successful with the short sale is when the owner's not committed to it. So if we come across somebody that's really truly not committed to it, we won't take the listing.
That's it. I mean, really, being underwater is not enough, is it? I mean, they have to really be emotionally ready to let go.
Yes.
So we're going to wrap the call up. I appreciate you guys doing this today very much, and I appreciate all the great listeners with all the great questions. Sorry I didn't get to all of them. So Dan, Tracy, let's just look 12 months from now, or 24 months, whatever horizon you choose. Where are you guys going to be? What's it look like for you? What are you looking forward to right now, professionally and maybe personally if you feel comfortable?
Tracy?
In 12 in 12 months, what I look forward to is, well, bringing us back from like 3 years ago, we finally have Sundays off, and so in 12 months, I want to have 3 days off in a row and be producing the same amount of volume and be a better manager for our team so that we can control our costs and our expenses and our bottom line.
That sounds really nice. What will the 3 days be? What will the 3 days be? Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Probably Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
So as your coach, Tracy, I suggest you put that into place in the next 30 days.
I know.
All right, Dan, same question for you. What are you looking forward to? What excites you? What do you know what's happening in the real estate market. You know that the fact that, home sales are going the wrong direction right now, home values and all the other stuff that are making the media's headlines. Despite all of that, I know that you're very optimistic and your business is growing. So what is it that you're looking forward to?
Well, I'll start with the personal aspect first, and that's just being a great husband and a great father. I mean, that's my priority right there. So if I screw this real estate thing up, at least if I have that, I'll still be proud. Looking at the business side of it, it's exactly what Tracy has said. It's having more free time to ourselves, and it's having a more highly leveraged business and a more profitable business as well.
So I don't know if there's any better way to end this interview, guys, but I hope everyone, what they took from this interview is not only the fact that Dan and Tracy have been able to form a business and they've been very entrepreneurial and they're creating multiple spokes for lead generation. They have open minds about what the market is offering them. They're not fighting with the fact that the short sales and the REOs, which we didn't even talk about REOs, but they're not struggling with the fact that that's the market. They're embracing it. And because of that mindset, because of that open for opportunity mindset, they've been able to build a very profitable business in 3.5 years. I mean, they've gone from, essentially an ups and downs in income cycles, and now they're selling over 100 homes, tracking to sell 120 homes this year. You can do the exact same thing. And I hope you also sense from Dan and Tracy that they really are calm. They're not nervous. They're not full of drama. They're saying, this is what we do, this is how we do it, this is what's going to happen as a result of what we're doing. And guess what? We're going to make a profit from it. We're going to invest it. We didn't talk a lot about that. But these are business owners. They are calm. They have a plan. They have direction. Every single one of you, whether you've been in the industry for ages and ages and ages or whether or not you're a brand new realtor, have Dan and Tracy as your model. Remember this interview. Remember the feeling that you have from listening to them. You can do the exact same thing. And frankly, now that you have Dan and Tracy and folks like them that are willing to share their secrets, share their path with you, you can actually shorten your learning curve. I mean, Dan, if you had this interview to listen to 3.5 years ago, would it have taken you 3.5 years to sell over 100 homes?
I don't know, Tim. It would have shortened my growth curve for sure. If I had you as a coach, it would have shortened things.
That is how we end the interview right there.
Golden.
Can't do better than that.
Big head, guys.
That is the home run. So that's where we're going to wrap it up. And so, listen, I really appreciate that. So listen, everyone, thanks for joining us for today's Superstar interview. If you have any questions for Dan and Tracy, if you have any certainly referrals for Dan and Tracy, they're really great people, down to earth. Dan, how do they get hold of you?
The best way, again, we serve Virginia, Maryland, and D.C., and the best way to get in hold of us is Dan@greetingsvirginia.com. It's all spelled out, greetingsvirginia.com.
So, Tracy, I'm Nick Treat. This is the coaching call. I'm about to give you a homework assignment. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm always ready for homework.
Okay, next Friday and every Friday thereafter, you don't work. Figure out how to get everything else done. Figure out how to get everything else done between Monday and Thursday. You can do it. It's not that big of a deal.
But I can go to a closing, though. I can go to a closing on Friday, and that's
that feels like work.
Okay.
So every Friday, it's a challenge. Every Friday, starting next Friday, you and Maggie have a shopping day. There it is. All right, so listen, everyone, thank you for joining us for today's Superstar interview. Again, if you have any questions for Julie and I, you can email us directly, tim@harrisrealestateuniversity.com or julie@harrisrealestateuniversity.com. Dan and Tracy, thank you sincerely for being today's Harris Real Estate University Superstars. And everyone, have a fantastic weekend.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.